The Center for Educational Media and the College of Education at Middle Tennessee State University are proud to offer professional development to K-12 educators in Tennessee through our online video library. These videos are aligned with standards set by the Tennessee Department of Education. For more professional development videos, check out our website at cem.mtsu.edu. Welcome back to the SPED Collaborative for Administrators at MTSU College of Education. We've had a great day thus far, and we have a great session to wrap up the day. Mr. Joshua Reese is here. He is a special education supervisor in Loudoun County. He is here with one of his special education coaches, Ms. Jessica Williams. And Mr. Reese was recognized this year or last year by TASSE, which is the Tennessee Association for Administrators of Special Education, the TASSE Cup Award for Special Education. So we have an award winner in our presence. And so he is going to present today on coaching with Ms. Williams. So thank you both for being here today.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. And we're glad to be here with you. We're excited to talk about some of the things that we're doing in Loudoun County schools. It's my, how many years am I doing this? Is this six? It's my sixth year as special ed supervisor in Loudoun County. My background before that was as a school psychologist. I inherited Jess as a special ed coach, and our partner Beth Disney, who's not here today. We've just been, building this plane and flying it at the same time. So this is kind of the things that we've done and how our coaching and our support for teachers in a time where it's really hard to retain teachers, and the success that we've had, but also the changes in the evolution that we've had to have with our program at the same time is what we want to share with you all today.
Oh, here we go.
Who are you, Jess?
Oh, yes. I am Jessica Williams. I am, like he said, one of the special education coaches in our county. I think this is year 18 or starting 19, I think. I don't know. It's been a while. But I have come from more of a behavioral background. I had the behavior classroom for quite a while in Loudoun County, and then also had inclusion prior to that. And then stepped out of the behavior classroom in about 2019 to start writing IEPs for our high school. And then from there, when Josh came on, I stepped more into the special education coaching role with my partner, Beth Disney.
And I said, whoa, I can't do this by myself. Get out of that classroom and give me some help. So that's how we got here.
Yes. So this is kind of our agenda today, a little bit about our story. We're going to talk about why coaching is important, kind of the cycle of it, and then just our coaching model in general. You're going to hear us say a lot, I think, is kind of the plan is we take feedback from our teachers every single year. We've not had one year the same. We've constantly changed it up based off the feedback that our teachers have given us. And I think that that's what's made this so successful over the years. And then hopefully leave you all with some strategies and some tips and tools as well that you all can implement. Right. So like I said, we're really hoping that you all will walk away from today having just some new strategies to support both your new and veteran teachers. So it's really easy to focus, I think, on new teachers, but it's also really easy to forget about our veteran teachers, and then trying to just continue to help them grow and not stay complacent. So that has been a challenge for us, and actually this year has been probably the most rewarding because I've heard from some teachers that normally just don't say anything, but they've walked away from some of our things the last few months going, thank you, or wow, that was amazing, that's made me think about. So that lets us know that we're kind of on the right track. Also, I love the compliance piece of it. My counterpart, Beth Disney, she's like, I like more of the intervention piece of it. And so I do more of the compliance. And so we'll try to talk today about some just strategies to support both instructional quality and then just IEP compliance.
And that's where we go a lot of the times is how do you have strong compliance and also have strong practices at the same time? Of course, your compliance is going to drive those practices, but making sure that you have experts in both those fields that can pour into your teachers is one of the things that we really strive for. Yes, we want to work strengths and weaknesses of our staff, but that doesn't also mean that, hey, we can just neglect one part of the job. So that is an ongoing conversation that we have in how to support our teachers and what they look like in implementation.
And then we do have some forms and rubrics and things like that that will also help you further your coaching conversations. And so our emails are on this PowerPoint, so feel free to reach out. We definitely would love to show and share some things that that have evolved over the years as well. So this kind of drives our coaching model. These are some of the different things that we look at every year. So obviously we have new teachers that start and they have a new job. They have a new job in special education, and then they're kind of like, what are we doing? As much as college tries to prepare them, it doesn't prepare them as adequately and as we need them to be. And so that's one of our focuses. Also, we want to know what's going on in our classrooms, because if we don't know what's going on in our classrooms, we don't know how to help. We don't know how to help our teachers, or if we get those emails or phone calls from parents, we can't answer them correctly with facts. Are our students growing? So that's one of the things that we're constantly looking at, is looking at our student data yearly, and we definitely want to see, are our students growing? And then are our teachers writing compliant IEPs? So making sure that we're not just following state monitoring, like their rubric that they send out every year, but really looking at that IEP rubric for best practices. Because we've found that not only if we're writing compliant IEPs, that's great, but it's not really growing our students in the way that we want to see. So now that we've moved into more of a best practices approach, we're really seeing the growth in our students. And we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. And then are the teacher evaluations an accurate depiction of teacher quality and performance? So that kind of goes on flip sides. I'll get teachers, calling me when they've gotten their evaluations and they're a 2 or a 3, and I'm like, wait a second, I've walked through your classroom. What's happening here? And so it may just be that they just needed to really, do that post feedback form, or strengthen their lesson plans to help the principals see what they're really truly doing, so I can provide that feedback. Or if it's an area that they truly need to grow on, that's where me and my counterpart Beth can provide feedback as well.
I think one thing that we often say is it's not a gotcha. These are instructional supports. These are coaching supports that are in place to let you grow. And part of our model requires a lot of in-person support and small group support. So developing those relationships with coaches, knowing somebody that you can go to and ask questions, that you don't need to go, you need to know when to go them, not all the time. Don't overuse your resources. We want you to be independent as well, but also having a person that there's truly to support, just not our new teachers, but our veteran teachers as well. So yes, there's a level of accountability if you know somebody's going to be looking at your data, but it's also just good to be in conversation, to be in relationship, and have people that you can trust and go to on a variety of the situations that arise in the world of special education.
All right, so why coaching? So when we started this, realistically, we really started it 6 years ago when Josh came on board. We'd started it, but it wasn't to nearly the level that we needed it to be or that it should have been. But the big thing that I can say is it just gives teachers a support that they need. There's a lot of times our special education teachers are on an island by themselves anyway within their building. And so they just kind of are the outsiders. They're kind of put on the back burner. They just don't always have teams that they can collaborate with. And so most importantly, coaching just provides that support for the teachers, but then also it provides really insights to teachers' strengths and weaknesses. So I may have a teacher that is very weak in IEP paperwork. In fact, we do have one.
Just one out of the 40. Just one.
But the one that stands out in my mind, like we've had multiple conversations just even last week about, hey, what is your struggle? Why can you not write a prior written notice within 10 days? However, I know she is a phenomenal interventionist. I know that's her strength. I know that she knows her students. She can rattle the data without even having to look at it. And so just knowing our teachers' strengths and weaknesses and really trying to use that as a platform to get them to grow, that really helps as well. And then the other big thing is it does give insight on school level procedures and support. So I know from going into certain schools which schools have great procedures in place and great support in place, and then I know which schools don't, and that's where Beth and I need to kind of follow in and support our teachers.
I would say another thing that we really emphasize at the leadership level is creating people that can problem solve. I think a lot of times, especially when you get very procedural, everybody wants to go this manual and it'd be a black and white answer, and we know in special ed that's not going to be the case. So creating good problem solvers and creating good collaborators, both within general ed and special ed staff, and also within the special ed teams in the schools. So a lot of our kids don't fit the mold of one program. They're just an inclusion kid, a resource kid, extended resource CDC, but how can we utilize the staff that we have within our buildings and build capacity within our buildings to support these kids? So those are a lot of things that are going on in these coaching, whether they're directly or indirectly addressed through these sessions. Those are things that we're really trying to build in our staff.
So this was, I want to say, this was about 4 years ago. And I want to say it was somebody at the State Department that put this training out.
She has a micro credential in coaching.
I do,
yes.
And I don't even remember which training it was, so I'm very sorry. But it was one of these trainings that Beth and I went through as a virtual one. But they talked about the phases of every teacher, and it's kind of like the grief cycle in a way. And this has really stood out to me. So this actually came out during the year. We have one of our phenomenal, she was a new teacher that year, but she is a phenomenal CDC teacher. And when I went through this training, like I could see her, literally brand new teacher, first year, CDC classroom. I could see her in August. She was eager beaver. She was like up here, ready to conquer the world, all the things. And by about, let's say Christmas, she was in that phase 3, that delusionment stage of kind of like, I'm exhausted. But she had come out of the gate, just full force. So her stamina wasn't strong to continue on. And she felt defeated because she wasn't as energetic. It was all these things. But then by the end in May, she was like, okay, I have 1 year under my belt. I can continue on next year. So Beth and I talked about it using these 5 phases of all of us, regardless if we're a first-year teacher, 15th year teacher, or whatever, we're going through these phases throughout the school year. So what can we do to keep this in mind, realize that we're going to, everybody's will start out strong, ready to go. By about fall break, you're like, how many more days till Christmas break? And then what can we do? So we've kind of based our coaching off of that to make sure we get our teachers to finish out strong and not dip so low that where they're not wanting to come back. So this was a really good visual. And like I said, I see teachers throughout the year, and I use this also when I'm talking to them. Especially like I said, it's about October. And so I know they're in the survival mode because we just have a few more weeks till fall break. And so I'm able to really try to help them get the last week under their belt, because we do go on fall break in a week, a little bit over a week. So this is, like I said, this is on the website, but this is something really good to look at, and just keep in mind for your teachers. All right, so because it works.
So we've seen growth. we're getting there. One of the biggest things, especially when we started this right in the middle of COVID, great time to take a new job. But our teacher retention rates have continued to grow. And, we don't always want to retain everybody either. So I don't have any slides about how to get rid of the veteran staff that aren't making progress. That's a different presentation. But our staff knows we care. They know that we're invested in them, that we're going to listen to them, we're going to be accessible. We didn't even really talk about our district demographics, but we have about 5,000 students, about 40 teachers is about where we're at in the special ed department, high ELL population as well. But at first we had a lot of people that like, hey, I'm not sure I'm going to jump to another district. Everybody, all the city districts are paying more. We've all got a lot going on. But really investing in developing relationships in our staff has really supported keeping our retention rates high. And then also making progress with our APR results, which is, multifactored there. But to see student progress, especially with our LRE indicators, has been a bright spot for us. The monitoring and compliance spot is all Beth and Jess. That's not my wheelhouse. I'll support it and stand in there and check out the eligibility stuff. But they do a fantastic job of making sure that our teachers are on top of that.
Okay, so there is a lot of pre-planning that goes involved in our coaching cycle, like a lot. Typically, I really start thinking about it, and Beth and I start talking about it before the end of the school year. So like we started talking about this year's in May of last year. Kind of just getting an idea of what worked well, what didn't, what do we need to scrap, what can we keep but like expand on, that sort of thing. And so we make a calendar of basically our coaching cycles. So we try to do something every 9 weeks. Okay, so where it started from a couple of years ago, Beth and I would meet with teachers one-on-one. So she would have a teacher, I would have a teacher. That's great. That's great and ideal. However, guess who got really burnt out very quickly? Me and Beth, because it was like it took a lot of time. We were basically having almost the same conversations every single day, and it was like by the end, we noticed we were in that burnout phase, right? That phase, the cycle I showed you. We both noticed that, hey, we're not giving 100% at the end of this. So what we ended up doing was doing something like this, where in August and September, we meet with cohorts. So Beth, like I said, she likes to do more of the instructional intervention side of things, looking at accommodations. I like the data and compliance side. So we try to look at our strengths and go from there. And so what we ended up doing with the cohort is Group A focuses on the curriculum and making sure that there is an alignment between their students' present levels, goals, and instructions. And then Group B is we're looking at social, emotional, pre-voc, and adaptive stuff and those present levels. And then if we have time, we're analyzing data. So what happens is so like when I mean cohorts, we have like our K2 resource teachers, our 3-5 resource teachers, 6-8 include resource teachers, and then high school meets separately. And then we do elementary CDC, middle and high school CDC, and then behavioral overall. I think I hit everybody. But what we're doing also this year, so last year what we did was, like I said, we really looked at those areas, those present levels, goals, and instruction. For Group B this year, one thing, the feedback that I've heard as we were looking at present levels is I was hearing, especially our behavioral teachers and our CDC teachers telling me, hey, we don't really feel like we can get good, we don't have really good assessments to look at those present levels for social, emotional, pre-voc, and adaptive. So actually what we did this time was each cohort, so behavioral and then CDC, we actually looked at our checklist and rewrote them. And what I found out was I called Josh that day, like, they love that. That was so beneficial to me or to them because it made them have ownership, which is what Josh was saying too, is we're trying to build capacity and we're trying to build ownership with our teachers. And so now that they've gotten some sort of stake into it, they're really going to know how to write better present levels because they've written those checklists. Then they're going to pilot it next semester once we get them refined. Also, it allowed us to look at, hey, okay, so what other things could you be doing? Well, you could be including attendance logs. You could be including your behavior sheets or your intervention data, things that they had never, even though we've said it 1,000 times probably in a professional development in service day. However, just really sitting down one-on-one and going through each kid and they're looking at their present levels or looking at their IEP goals, letting them see how they can use those things, it was just really eye-opener. So the first one, like I said, is in cohorts.
Jess,
yes.
and one thing I'd say is this is really combating what I would say is we do not have a great professional development calendar. We don't have breaks throughout the year. We don't have, PLC, early out days or anything like that. So what this really looks like is the special ed department providing a substitute teacher.
Yes.
If you saw our calendar up there, they're all on Wednesdays because if you try to pull somebody on Friday, there's no way you're getting a substitute. Yeah. So, that is by design. But this is a way that we stay engaged with our staff throughout the year, even if we don't have district designated days to pull our teachers.
And so then in November, December, we're meeting again. But if they met with me last time, then they're meeting and talking about academic deficit areas. Then if they were talking about academic deficit areas in August and September, then they're now meeting with me and we're looking at social emotional pre-voc and adaptive, and then really looking at data if we have time. So August through December, similar, it's just on who they meet with. What we do in January and February is we send out a coaching menu. So, and I'll show, there's an example here in a little bit. We try to hit everything on the coaching menu. However, some of it does require substitutes. And so we can't make everything happen, but we definitely try our very best to make everything on there happen. But it's basically, what do our teachers telling us, what do they need? What do they need from us? And so I'll show that to you here in just a second, and then I'll go into a little bit more detail when you see the visual. And then March and April, we heard our teachers. We do still call it like a coaching meeting because coaching conversations do come up, but they're still meeting with our cohorts, but it's basically let's finish out the year strong, because remember, we're trying to get them to finish out strong, and it's working on paperwork. So they're sitting around a table, they're creating invitations for meetings, writing prior written notices, but what will happen as they're sitting with people in the same, realm as them, so like our behavior teachers, hey, what are you doing for this? Or I'm really struggling with writing a goal for this student. What is it something you've done? And so it's just this natural conversation that flows, and it's just so neat to work because yes, they're getting stuff done. They're doing, like I said, the paperwork, the compliance side of it, but it's time for them to do it. They can make stuff as they need to, and it's just a great day for them just to kind of finish out strong. So that's one of my favorite ones.
Jess, talk about teacher buy-in a little bit.
Yes.
Some people were kind of hesitant with this. Some people
yeah.
don't want you to know what's going on in their classroom. They don't want you to know what's going on in their paperwork.
Yeah.
And so it is a little of an intimidating setting for some of those people. But when we've seen the buy-in, we've seen the attitudes change, and we've seen a lot of veteran teachers and go, just thank you.
Yes.
Like, thank you for this. But if you'll speak to that a little bit.
It's really it's taken a long time because, like he said, for some teachers, there's definitely that wall up because they have that, they're here to get me mentality. But really, what we have really tried to do is just foster that relationship with our teachers. Just throughout it takes throughout the year, us showing up, us just being there, hey, we've heard you, taking their feedback and making the changes based on their feedback. I think that's slowly helped. Not just saying, when they have a question, we truly try to provide answers that they can actually turn around and do. Or if they need help, we're there, not immediately, but we're there as quick as we can to try to see it in person and provide help. One teacher, for example, she has a huge caseload. One thing we heard from her is, because her problem was getting her progress reports done on time. Well, when you have a large caseload, and at the school she's at, last year we were like, hey, what can we do? We realized, hey, we could provide her with a half-day sub and allow her to write her progress reports. We also showed her some ways to help make it a quicker process for her,
And if they stay in the building, they're not going to get anything done.
Yes, and so we bring her out, we let her go get a good lunch, and then come work with us and just put her head down and work. So just little things like that have allowed to buy in. One of my favorite people in our county, he's probably been teaching, he could probably retire tomorrow, honestly. He actually left our county, went to another school district, actually came back because he was getting lax on his paperwork, and he was like, I wasn't being held accountable. And he came back, and he texts us all the time, every time we meet with him, and he's like, I had a great time, thank you so much. And it's just because I think we're listening to our teachers and giving them what they're asking for. I think that's helped get their buy-in. Now, I will say, we still have 2 teachers or a couple of teachers where we're not there yet, and that's okay. And I think that they know that we're there if they need us, but that's not where we're pouring our energy in. I think that I think they see it. They're just, they're being compliant. They're great.
Those are the ones that don't laugh when I refer to you and Beth as my spies.
Yes, they're the ones. Yes, that is true. Everybody else laughs because they know that's the truth. Not true. Yeah. Okay, so here's kind of like one of our, I said we look at data. This looks overwhelming, I know. But when we do look at data, this is one of the sheets we've used in the past. So this was one of our schools, and we really look at really making sure is there a pattern and is everything kind of matching. So with this one, we were looking at, let's just say this is reading or ELA. We were looking at their TVOS scores, common assessments. This time we didn't have the common assessments in this. Oh, there's a laser here somewhere. Okay, and then benchmark, Ames Web benchmark, and then iReady diagnostic. I know a lot of those tests don't really measure the same thing as far as like the benchmark, iReady. Sometimes they don't overlap, but here you kind of want to see this kid. We were able to go, okay, what did he get here that he didn't get here, or vice versa? We're able to look for patterns. We also were looking at classroom grades. We wanted to make sure our classroom grades were not really fluffed, because what happens is, and you all kind of might have seen this with third grade retention, wait, my student is making A's, but you're saying he failed TCAPs? What? So we were actually ahead of the game on this one and we had been talking about it for years leading up to it, making sure that their classroom grades somewhat match where they're getting for TVOS.
They may not always match, but
make
sure you're clearly communicating and you're transparent in that those might not necessarily reflect the state standards.
And that's where we were having in these coaching meetings of looking at what accommodations are they getting here in the classrooms that they're not getting on the TCAPs, and coaching our teachers into having those conversations in their IEP meetings. It also allowed us to see hey, this kid does really well with read aloud, we need to keep it. Or this student doesn't really need extended time, they're not utilizing it well. So it's really also helped tailor our accommodations to meet the needs of our students. So that's just one of our forms. We've kind of not used it, we didn't use it last year, and we may end up going back to it. It's one of those things that it is time consuming to do and to fill out, but Our teachers, especially our inclusion teachers in middle school, really, this was a good visual for them.
I
For
also
sure.
think it's important that you do that with them, so they're learning
Yes.
how to do it themselves. So it's kind of a make it, take it type situation.
So this is our coaching menu. Like I said, we do this in January and February. So you'll see here we have appetizers, main course, and dessert. Our teachers, we just say, hey, pick 3 things. It can be 1 in each column. It can actually be 1 in one column and 2 in another. You make it your own. Funny thing is, Beth and I did a walkthrough just this week, and she used a menu for her students based off of something like this, which I thought was pretty cool. We were like, that is great that you're tailoring it to meet your kids' needs. But one thing you'll notice here is there's a lot of support in here. Like you'll see where we're helping support our teachers, but also because 1, I love it, but 2, we realize organization and procedural help. We recognize that our teachers are struggling, some of our teachers are really struggling in these areas. Well, they have the opportunity to really allow me to come in and truly help get their stuff in order for them if they need it. Instead of putting that on them, I get it, they have a busy time, they come in from an IEP meeting, they have to go straight into teaching a class, back to teaching intervention, that paperwork gets lost. I get it, I've been there. So we really try to look at what do our our teachers need. Another one is like, okay, we've asked you to teach this intervention. Do you have the materials for it? Do you need something else that we need to make for you? One thing we realized last year, this was a big one, the resource roundup. Our reading interventions were really strong. However, we've been struggling in math interventions, providing math interventions. So while we had a lot of teachers do this, instead of pulling them out to do this one-on-one, we've done this through an in-service day last February, and then also my colleague Beth, that is what her coaching cycle is about this semester. So she's looking at specifically math interventions with our teachers.
I'd say just a tip there for building and district leaders is if you can get them the resources, like that is such a win for you and the teachers. So if there are little things that you are able to purchase and let them pilot, now don't give them a subscription to Teachers Pay Teachers, but if there are things that you can provide for their classroom, that goes a long way in keeping them satisfied with their job.
Mm-hmm. And what's funny is now that we're meeting in cohorts, this one's not as popular, and then visit a colleague isn't as popular. So we were able to kind of think like that's probably because we're meeting in cohorts and they're able to talk about it.
But that's another thing that we've seen that we did, especially early on, is go visit different districts, people doing it at different places. Now we've got a little bit more capacity to do it within district, but it means a lot to call up your neighbor in a different school district and just go see a different setting, see a different way to do things, and just keep an open mind.
Yes.
You're good. Go for it.
How do you communicate, or how do they select what they would like to see? How does that process work?
So I still do paper and pencil. So I send it out to them, and then they copy, they print it off, and then circle what they want, and then they send it back to me. And then I have like a tracking sheet of
What do you
what
see
I
as the most common? Like if you were
So, like I said, prior to us breaking up into cohorts last year, it was visit a colleague and brainstorm with a peer. But now, like I said, it's been that resource roundup and the materials. That's been the big one. My new teachers, they really want help with this evaluation support. So like I had a teacher, actually I've had several teachers that's kind of gotten not terrible scores. I'm like, these aren't bad. But I also don't think that they realize how to highlight some of the things that they were doing in their classroom to make their scores go up. So I've been able to do that. And like I said, so those were kind of the big ones.
It's not on there, but it's scheduling is a huge strength that they have to assist in, both with teachers and the staff. I know everybody are with building administrators as well, but to have an outside person take a look at your schedule and see if they can look at any holes or other options.
We actually had
Is-
3 schools that took advantage of that. We had one school that they've kind of restructured their intervention and support. They were like doing K2 and 3, 4 breakup. While that's still the caseload, they've been able to do, hey, this one's, her strength is teaching the reading intervention. So she's doing the reading intervention piece, and then this teacher is doing the math piece, but it's also allowed co-teaching. And then another school, thank goodness we added a position this year at that school, but when we talked about it, we were able to say, hey, you really have the perfect setup. You now have 4 teachers, 4 grades. Let's look at a co-teaching model. And they've gone with it. And then a CDC class, that bless their hearts this year, it was a dumpster fire. And so I was able to look at their schedule and kind of take the teacher's schedule, same skeleton, but kind of refine it a little bit, and it's worked out much better. There's not as many dumpster fires.
And I know a lot of you all have veteran special ed teachers and people that are good at scheduling and things, but what you don't want is, asking for additional personnel and, you're calling the SPED director and it's like, hey, we really need another person. And then you've just let your special ed staff kind of create their own schedule.
Yeah.
There are holes in it, trust me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I do provide. I do like that sort of thing. Okay, does that answer your question? Okay. But yes, those are kind of the big hot topic ones that we see. And like I said, we do try to hit those. So walkthroughs, we started this. So one thing that Beth and I noticed when we first started this, back when Josh started 6 years ago, we didn't get in the classrooms as much. Like I said, like Josh said, we were kind of building this plane as we were flying it. But the one thing we weren't getting in and seeing were the actual classrooms. Now, we would get called into a classroom if there was an issue, but like as far as just coming in and out and like seeing how things were going, we weren't getting to do, and we knew we always wanted to do it. So we started last year kind of talking with some other stakeholders in our district, and like they were doing the IPG walkthroughs, and so Beth and I kind of observed how that went. We talked to our ELA and math instructional coaches, kind of talked about and kind of observed how they did it in buildings and things like that. So what we started doing last year was doing walkthroughs. We started in the second semester, so we started in January, February. And once again, still didn't really know what it was going to look like, but we were really looking at, okay, hey, I'm going into this reading intervention group. I'm pulling up IEP at a glances. Am I seeing, the intervention being done based off of their goals? In most places, yes, and in some places, no. So then that's where we were able to have follow-up conversations and kind of talk about it. I will say one of our best moments was we walked into a middle school classroom. The teacher was teaching elapsed time, which is kind of, to me, random. I was kind of like, why elapsed time? Sure enough, I pulled up that present level. Guess what the kid's deficit area was? Elapsed time. Guess what was on her goal? Elapsed time. And it was like, it's all coming together. Our coaching meetings are talking about strengthening our can-dos and can't-do statements, right? What the student can do and what they can't do. And now it's followed through into this intervention. And it was like, we've kind of come full circle. But this year, what we're doing is, once again, looking at what our strengths, mine and Beth's strengths are, is we are still doing SPED walkthroughs, but she is looking at the intervention side of it. I'm over here doing kind of an on-site monitoring, looking at their IEP paperwork, looking at strengths and weaknesses, or hey, how can we strengthen this, or you're doing really good in this area. I'm evaluating, depending on if it's an SLD kid and just reading fluency, that's going to go a lot quicker than an OHI kid or a kid with autism, right? So depending on the time that I have, I'm trying to at least catch 2 files, or not catch, but review 2 files. And I'm, once again, looking at, hey, are their can-dos, can't-dos strong? And is Beth seeing that when she's looking at the intervention piece of it? So this is just really, this has been one of the best things that we've added. in the last year, because it's allowed us to, once again, get in the classrooms. It's allowed us to, as we're talking to our teachers, really support them. I think this is what's actually brought the most buy-in, I think, from our teachers, is doing these walkthroughs. Beth and I were very nervous about it just because we didn't want it to be a gotcha, but, and it's not been. They've not, at least to our faces, they've not seen it that way.
And for the
Thank
sake of
goodness.
time, I will not get on the fidelity of those intervention soapbox but do keep in mind, a lot of times our special ed students go to that special ed intervention, and there's a whole lot of students, probably a whole lot more than's in that tier 3 intervention. There's quite the continuum of instructional levels in that as well, and probably an interventionist that probably doesn't have as much training that's on that tier 3 level. So just keep in mind to use whatever strategies you have at both the school and the district level to preserve as much fidelity as you can in those interventions.
Yes.
That's it.
Yep.
Stopping.
So our other coaching strategies, so we do a summer training for new teachers. So we get new teachers. This year we got a lot of new teachers. However, it's not because we lost a lot of new teachers. Our school board and our director of schools heard Josh and, allowed us to have some new positions.
Now,
So
do
I'm
most
not
of those go
gloating.
to support elementary behavior?
Yes.
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 Yeah, they
So
do.
I don't want to think we're over here bragging or anything, but I kind of am because, he went in and asked for 3 and we got 5. I'm just saying, our school board, I know, he should have asked for more and we would have gotten, come on. So we did have several new teachers this year just because of that. And so what we end up doing is we do a summer training where we're really looking at Loudoun County policies because we do things compliant, but then we go a little bit above and beyond. We're a little extra. And we just like things done a certain way just so we can continue that best practice. So we really train our new teachers in that. This year, since we did have so many new teachers, we actually, in our August and September coaching sessions, they didn't get to meet with our cohorts. We actually pulled them again to meet together as a new teacher group. So they got a full day in August where they were able to make their data sheets because we're throwing them into the wolves and that was actually feedback that we got from a new teacher last year because I sat with her. She came in November. I sat with her for 2 days and we sat and made data sheets. We sat and looked at her upcoming IEP meetings and made a calendar for the rest of the year. And she was like, Jess, that was the most help everybody needs that. And so I heard her, right? Because once again, I go based off of feedback. So we sat down, 5 teachers one day, 5 teachers another day, and looked through their IEP goals. So we took the CDC teachers and behavior teachers one day because they're going to have the most. I hooked them up to the printer, gave them resources. We did it together. They walked out of there with data collection sheets. They walked out of there with their IEP at a glances completed. And then also looking at IEPs. When do we need to schedule IEPs? When do we need to make an invitation? 10 days prior. It was a great day. And that way they didn't have to do it on their own because what was going to happen was it wasn't going to get done. And so then we were going to spend all of our time being like, hey, I need you to do this. I need you to do this. So we were kind of proactive.
I think the individualization there, sitting down and being able to do it with somebody is so key there. So often, we do have a bank of resources. We do have a Teams page, but one of my pet peeves is we often overwhelm our staff with resources. Go here, just go look at this, go find it, go refer back to the July 24th email. Quite frankly, it's offensive to some of our staff. So if you're able to sit down there and walk them through it, we get a lot better buy-in, a lot better results.
So the other thing that we do for our new teachers, all of our new teachers, even if they're coming from another district, we review their IEPs. We do ask for their IEPs to be sent to us. We divide the new teachers up. and we review them. And we ask them to make the changes, we review it again, and if more changes need to be made. What is so funny is that this year our new teachers are writing better IEPs. We actually, this year, instead of like going all day and talking about TM Pulse and like how to write IEPs with our new teachers, they usually get glazed over. So we basically broke it down, our TM Pulse, first of all, we broke it down step by step, and what are our expectations for each part of the IEP, and then gave them examples. And so we had told them, we're not going to teach you this. We kind of did a rough drive-by on TM Pulse, but here's this, it's printed out for you, and they actually reference it, which I was really proud. I didn't think that they would, but that actually helped me, mine and Beth's sanity as well. So our IEPs are better. We also help our new teachers if they've never led an IEP meeting before. We're there. And then, like he said, we have a Teams page that has all the resources and then everything on there that our teachers could possibly need. And we're constantly updating it. So what do we do? What else do we do? This is something else. So we do provide, when we can, our district professional development sessions based off group needs. One thing that we do as well is we were doing after school, because like he said, our PD schedule is terrible. So we were trying to do PLCs in the afternoons one time a month. However, 5 teachers would show up, and we had 30 at the time. So that was not effective. So what we did, and Josh was like, hey, let's just try to build capacity and leadership within our school district or school buildings. So we pull 1 teacher every 9 weeks. We do have to pay for a sub for a half a day, but we all come together. We make our PLCs together. They have ownership of it, and then they go back and redeliver it, whether it's after school. If it's after school, we'll give them a certificate. But then those parent-teacher conferences where none of the parents show up, instead of just twiddling their thumbs, they usually do it during that time as well. Or those after-school, in-services that the schools have that don't apply to our special education teachers, they're doing it during that time as well. And then we also collaborate with teachers and principals. We collaborate with principals quite often. There's some that we have better relationships with than others, and that's okay. But we do try to meet, at least as a team, once a year with our principals. We kind of do it what do we call it? It's like anyway, we go around to each school. We had a name for it. I can't remember it.
I do want to say, we've talked about retention, we've talked about keeping our staff informed and improving our staff, but I also want to emphasize the recruitment piece to it. Like, you have to recruit good staff. It's such a competitive market right now. You have to start earlier. You have to communicate that to your district leaders. You have to respond to the random emails, even if they're, in September and they're moving from another state 2 years from now.
Yeah.
But you've got to be constantly recruiting. We've had a lot of success with Grow Your Own programs with people that are already working in the building, even bringing them into those coaching meetings before they're in a certified position. But the recruitment piece is essential to this as well.
And I will say, I know subs are hard to find. And so the other day I was screenshotting a text message I got from a principal about a sub to him. I was like, this is so infuriating. And I get it. But one thing we do say is, like, if you can't get a sub, if there's somebody else that can cover, can we figure out a way to get them there? Because we want our teachers there. Because if not, they're missing so much. And plus, they just need a day to go get lunch and not have to be pulled from lunch. They just need that time. And like we've said over and over, our topics are based off of basically feedback that we get from our teachers. And it's really, really strengthening. Like, our IEPs, like our present levels are getting better and better. And we're seeing that pay off, like I said, in our TCAP scores. I mean, it's starting to finally trickle down, and we're starting to see it pay off. So kind of what's next, we're going to continue doing our walkthroughs. That's something that we definitely enjoy getting to do, but like I said, we get to see the benefits of it. We're going to keep, tailoring our coaching to meet the needs of our teachers, whether that's, helping them make data sheets or helping with scheduling. We do have we're trying to start more co-teaching this year, so that's probably where we're going to have to start looking next. That may be where some of our walkthroughs go next, is into our co-teaching classrooms, because we're very lucky to have several schools that are doing that model.
I think another thing that you do a lot of is your de-escalation presentations and trying to reach a broader audience. So making sure our general ed teachers have some of that expertise and understanding as well. I know those frustrations can be high, especially when there's volatile and serious behaviors to respond to. But more of our professional development opportunities, meeting more than just our special ed staff. Emotions are always high dealing with student behavior, so the more skills that we can teach our staff and just develop relationships across the spectrum, and just not for our special education employees, is important as well.
And also, kind of piggybacking off of that, really helping our gen ed teachers understand their role in IEP meetings. And when they're asked to complete forms, not just saying, how is a child doing on reading fluency, and you get okay or great. That doesn't tell me anything. So we're really trying to work with our gen ed teachers on, why is this important? Because, you're really helping us drive the student's IEP. Like, yeah, I have great intervention data, but we're looking at what's keeping them from accessing the gen ed curriculum. And so their feedback. So we're really working on that. And that's kind of where the building capacity on school level teams as well. They've been challenged this time with their PLCs to kind of go back and take that to their special education teachers, so that way whenever they're handing out those forms, what do you need to be saying to your gen ed teachers? Do they truly understand? So we're really trying to build capacity there in that area. So
We touched on this a little bit, but Beth, Jess, and I communicate all the time. Very much a shared leadership experience there. But they do a great job of, no, you need to call Josh in this situation. So they know when it's appropriate. They know when they can handle things. They know when they can pass it back to the teachers and say, no, you kind of need to handle this and take action first. So understanding what is appropriate amounts of communication and what things rise to the level that they need additional attention.
So that's kind of what's next for us. But like, I can't stress enough, like, one thing that we have done that I will brag about ourselves is that we have listened to our teachers and really tried to tailor it to what they need. So it's not the same every single year. Sometimes I wish it was, because it would be easier and the planning would be a lot easier. But it's not what's best for our students. So I will say, if you're just starting, start somewhere, start small. What's something that you can do with what you've already got, and don't tackle too much at one time. So just start with either the coaching menu, or having group leaders from your building do a PLC. Just start really small, and then you can grow from there is what I would suggest. So, yep.
I think that's it. Happy
it.
Friday.
Happy
We're open for
Friday.
questions for sure.
Yeah. And if you do email me, if you'll notice, my email is not my last name, so it's Gooch J. So,
Now, we are way over there in East Tennessee
Yeah.
if you want to come visit,
Yeah.
but the Smokies aren't too far away.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank y'all.
Joshua Reese and Jessica Williams, thank you for being here today.